It's one small step for man.
Out to the. Hello everyone, welcome back to Here's What's Going On podcast with me, AJ. Let's jump right into the ABCs. AJ's book corner. The Women's War is what I'm reading by Jenna Glass. Shelvon had lost weight since the last time Alice had met with her, only 2 weeks ago. She looked so frail and ill that Alice's heart ached for her. Are you still taking those fertility potions? She asked her sister-in-law as soon as they were alone together in the rose room for what was becoming their bi-weekly strategy meeting. At this point in the proceedings, Alice didn't really need any help from Shelvon in searching for a potential match for Janelle, but their previous discussions had given her a new appreciation for her sister-in-law, who was clearly kind and good-hearted when she was comfortable enough to let down her guard. Her shyness meant she had few friends in the palace, and Alice had the distinct impression the poor girl was painfully lonely. Shelvon shrugged, though the effort of raising her shoulders seemed to tire her. I poured out the last 2 Delamal gave me. They clearly aren't doing any good, but he keeps pushing them on me. She managed one of her wan smiles. I suppose it should be flattered. He's trying so hard to make it work. He could have given up on me by now. Alice wanted to gather the younger woman into a motherly embrace to soothe away her fears and assure her everything would be all right. If her detestable half-brother were actually trying to make the marriage work, he would be showering Shelvon with love and affection, not forcing her to drink potions that made her ill. Shelvon shook her melancholy, or at least its outer trappings, and a small hint of life sparked in her eyes. For all the unpleasant reasons behind finding a foreign match for Janelle, Shelvon seemed to enjoy matchmaking. Alice frowned, hating that she had no positive news to help lift the mood. I received a few more refusals and a couple of vague and tepid replies that indicated willingness to entertain the possibility at some unspecified future time. I'm beginning to wonder if I need to ask my father to increase Janelle's dowry. Not that she had any reason to think he would. Contributing to the dowry at all had been an unnecessary kindness. Before you ask, she continued, yes, I sent a flyer to Zarsha of Zandal, though I admit it was only last week, so it's not surprising I have not yet received a response. Depending on when and whether it could take up to 2 days for a flyer to cross the distance between Alwell and Zenelm Well, where Zarsha was making his extended visit. Shelvon opened her mouth as if to say something, then shut it with a snap. Looking over Alice's shoulder, she hastily scrambled to her feet. Alice rose and whirled toward the door, knowing someone must have come in while her back was turned. With a shock, she saw that it was the king. She was so surprised to see him that she was uncomfortably late, giving him the necessary curtsy. He did not pop in unannounced. His schedule was rigidly controlled, so that usually even his own children had to make an appointment to speak with him. Please excuse my interruption, he said, then turned to Shelvon without awaiting a reply, commanding them to accept his apology rather than asking any private word with my daughter, my dear. Alice bit her tongue to keep herself from snapping at her father, rude enough that he was barging in on her conversation with Shelvon, but then to dismiss the future queen of Alta as if she were some serving girl. Of course, your majesty, Shelvon said, dropping into a deep curtsy and averting her eyes. Alice had the uncharitable thought that Shelvon was so submissive it never even occurred to her to be annoyed. Alice crossed her arms and held her tongue as Shelvon scurried from the room, and the king helped himself to her still warm seat. Alice was sure irritation showed plainly both in her facial expression and her body language. She hadn't expected a great deal of use to come from meeting with Shelvon, but she would have liked more than 5 minutes of her sister-in-law's company. Please sit down, Alice, her father said when she remained on her feet, radiating displeasure. I wouldn't have interrupted if it wasn't important. Yeah, this story, it's good, man. I like it so far. And shouts out, I read as well as I read because I listen to my sister read. And my sister and I, my brother and I, and my family, basically all my brothers and sisters have very similar cadence with how we talk. And also, I read as well as I read because my sister. And she knows how to read books really well, and she's read to children. I read as well as I read to children with animation and the voices and stuff like that because my sister. I just want to say that. I don't know. I was reading, I was just like, dang, I sound like her. That's how I was reading, but I read as well as I read because of my sister. Let's jump right into this episode. We're discussing taking a break from social media. Is it really necessary for me not to continue to scroll all Tyreek Wither videos late at night until I hopefully fall asleep? Probably not. The article, Social Isolation in the Time of Social Media Connection by Darby Saxby, PhD, agrees. They discuss the effects of social media on anxiety and depression and the connection between the two. The research in the article was able to show that while social media can have an increase in subjective well-being through increased connectedness, it, however, does not have the increased benefits of decreased social isolation. So social isolation can increase mortality, and that's why I feel like it's kind of so important to have face-to-face interactions rather than only social media interactions. It's about trying to find the balance. I'm learning how to better manage my social interactions with others. I'm an introvert and I charge by being alone, so I do require more time to charge back up, but I also am taking the time to explore things that I like to do. Like last week I went to a food festival and walked around for hours and met up with a friend but mind you, I almost went home twice. One, because of parking. Two, because I had to walk through the mall, this large flipping mall, at 2 and 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a hellscape. But we'll say, I've already talked about how much of a hellscape it was. And it was just so uncomfortable. But I sat in that discomfort. I was proud of myself for doing so because I had such an amazing time. It was beautiful weather. I sat on the grass and just chilled and people watched and made up stories in my head about the families and people that I saw. And it was nice. Now, the night prior, I also went out to a game. So on the third day, like Jesus, I rested. I don't think I'll ever be an outside type of girl, but I'm slowly building my stamina with going places because I'm gaining and understanding that being around people doesn't have to be unsafe or feared, and it's nice to be around others and good for your mental health as well. So yeah, moving on to what I'm happy and grateful for. I am happy and grateful for growing within my anxiety when something inconvenience happens, and that in and of itself is growth because I almost said sad or bad things happen, but I've experienced really bad things. But I now understand the power of words, and some things are bad, but some things are just inconvenient. But the old me would view things as good or bad and allow them to ruin their day. Now I'm working on being present, on trying to find the next step within inconvenient situations. Yes, I'm still anxious. Yes, I still get pissed off. Yes, it's not easy. Yes, I feel like it was going to ruin my whole day, but I still am trying to find the joy in it and still progress and have joy in my day rather than letting that be the end all and be all. So this is more a theory than a quote, and I'm sure you probably heard of it. It's the burnt toast theory, and I kept hearing about it, so I went and researched it. And here it is. Every time you burn your toast, miss an exit, miss your flight, or get stuck in traffic, you're actually being delayed for a reason. You're being redirected to a different path that feels like an inconvenience. What feels like an inconvenience is actually protecting you from something unseen. Even if you don't get where you want it to go, you will always end up where you are meant to be. Trust the process. There's peace in this theory, but also during the situation or when you're in it, it's harder to see the protection or positivity within it. But I am beginning to believe more in finding peace and having to go through terrible things to reach where I'm supposed to be, even if it hurts. And I it's really hard though, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you. For me to say, and I don't even know if I'm not, mind you, I'm still working on it. But for me to say, my mom had to die when I was 5 for me to be where I am now. And I have a certain level of success and pulling myself up and, resilience. Yeah. But it didn't mean that shit ain't hurt. So it doesn't mean that shit don't hurt. So, it's hard. And I think I watched this interview with Colbert and that other dude, I forgot what his name, but his mom was a Vanderbilt or whatever. And Stephen Colbert was like, what are tragedies but gifts as well? And from God. And I was just like, I guess, but still that shit hurt. But before I go, be sure to check out the show notes. Also check out my books on Amazon titled Poems to Cry to in the Dark and Love Letters Never Sent to Myself, and leave a 5-star rating. Other than that, I don't have anything else. I'm glad you're still here, and I hope you have the day you deserve. Bye.
athlete.
For